that these media outlets, they spread lies and disinformation on behalf of the U.S. government and through the mouths of anonymous U.S. intelligence officials from the CIA and other spy agencies.
隨住俄烏局勢嘅發酵，美西方國家同埋佢嘅媒體越嚟越唔掩飾佢哋嘅霸道立場，迫使其他國家站邊跟隊。只要中立或持相反意見，就會面臨被制裁抹黑。而早喺俄烏衝突之前，美西方媒體就多次針對抹黑中國新疆同埋香港，跟藉助潛逃海外嘅反中亂港分子之口，指責中央同埋特區政府。日前，一位美國嘅調查記者就揭穿咗美西方媒體嘅真面目。
Well, clearly we see that in the Western media there is a lot of bias. So first of all, the Western media acts as though the Global South is largely irrelevant. I mean, when we're talking about the conflicts in Ukraine, the U.S. government constantly talks about the idea of the so-called international community in scare quotes. And when it says that, it really means the U.S., Canada, Europe, and Australia and New Zealand. Maybe they'll throw in Japan and South Korea, but they ignore the vast majority. And furthermore, when there is coverage of the Western media, there's often a kind of racist, patronizing perspective that portrays countries in the Global South as authoritarian, in scare quotes, and portrays the West as supposedly democratic in counterbalance against the Global South.
除咗對南方國家嘅偏見，本傑明仲揭露美西方媒體成為佢哋國家打壓他國嘅工具。佢更加提到呢啲媒體為咗自身嘅情報來源，早已完全偏離獨立嘅立場。
They exist to reinforce the foreign policy interests of the governments in the country that they're situated in. We've seen over many decades with the war against Korea, the U.S. war against Vietnam, both of the two U.S. wars against Iraq, the war in Yemen, the war in Libya, the war in Syria, the CIA claiming that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and that was used to justify an illegal invasion of Iraq. So we see that the media plays a role as the handmaiden for the U.S. government, and also European media outlets play the same role for European governments. And they claim to be independent, but the reality is they're not independent. And you rely on the CIA to feed you stories. You're not going to criticize the CIA because then they might stop feeding you the stories that you publish. So we see this feedback loop where many of these Western media outlets are reliant on Western governments to feed them stories, so they're very reluctant to challenge those governments.